5 know-nothing riots of Louisville. Just to catch you up, you have the good, holy, pious, pure, innocent, productive, workaholic, the Germans and the Irish people, and the Catholics. But you have the evil white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who don't want the evil. Is that somebody coming up? No. So evil white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Okay, so you got the evil white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who's murdering and killing and burning down the houses of the Germans and the Irish. They started in Germantown, or in Butchertown, and Pheonix Hill. They burned down Arm Buster's Brewery. So they burnt down, a beer station, right? They were all for the Continental Sunday. The damn Germans had picnics and shit. They drunk alcohol in their Catholic proceedings. So the same with the Irish. They were drinking. They're luscious. They're getting drunk all the time. In fact, because of the Irish and because of the Germans' love of alcohol, you're going to see in 1920s they're going to ban alcohol. They're going to have prohibition. The prohibition era. And what happened with prohibition of alcohol? It failed. It was a noble experiment, but it failed because it created Al Capone and it created all these drug dealers who's peddling alcohol, secretly underneath the authorities. The profit incentive was increased. It created gangsters and people who was willing to take the risk to still peddle in the alcohol market, either went to jail, got caught, or made a fortune for years before they go to jail and could easily pay for the $100 bond in order to get out. So we're in the middle of, they went there, they got drunk, and then they passed out, no big deal. But now they went to the Irish neighborhood, and the Irish neighborhood is where the know-nothing white Anglo-Saxon Protestant dickheads, that's where the real violence happens, okay, the real butchery. So here we go. Theodore Rhodes was killed. Nobody knew by who, probably the Irish. Again, large mobs of Native American white Anglo-Saxon Protestants came poured into a foreign district. The Irish inhabitants fired on the mob from houses located along Quinn's Road. This row of houses on Main Street owned by Patrick Quinn, a rich Irishman. The white Anglo-Saxon Protestants retaliated by setting fire to the whole road, destroying 12 houses, burning several persons to death, including Patrick Quinn himself. Francis Quinn, the owner, the rich Irishman, who owned 12 houses, right? Confronted the mob, he offered them all of his money in an effort to save his life, but they took both. Leonard Coasters had graphically sketched the scene during the burning of Long's house on Quinn's Row. So this is a German. 3 Germans are going to die, or 2 Germans are going to die, burned up in the fire. But one of them is going to live. Okay, so we know that there's 3 Long brothers that had died in the fire, okay, which is significant. All 3 Long brothers tried to escape by way of the roof, but were shot at from the streets and high points of the surrounding buildings. 2 were unable to make their getaway and hanged to the banisters of their own house, where their helpless mother saw them consumed by the flames. The 3rd one managed to flee after receiving 13 bullet wounds. Then he is brought to jail. So you have 2 Long brothers who's burned up in the fire that Patrick Quinn was burned up in. So that's 3 deaths when they burned down Quinn's Row. That's what they called all the houses right next to them. And 3 Long brothers, they tried to escape by way of the roof, but they were shot at from the streets and the high points of the surrounding buildings. So they had marksmen, they had snipers on the surrounding buildings. And then they had people on the street who were unable to make their getaway. So these are organized militias. The Know-Nothings wasn't just like a party. It wasn't like just some sort of festival. It wasn't a political party. It was backed by guns. So it's fascism was taking hold in the United States with the Know-Nothings. And then we're going to see the Civil War. So they couldn't get away. They were hanged to the banisters of their own house. Their helpless mother saw them burnt up by the flames. The 3rd one was able to get out of that burning house, but they got 13 bullet wounds and went to jail. So who knows if that person lived or died, but they had lived the initial, for the 13 bullet wounds. And they put them in jail. They don't put them into they don't put him in the hospital. The fire department tried to put out the spreading flames in the rows of houses, but the know-nothings told them if they did, they would have their hoses cut to ribbons. The firemen were told, however, that they could save the adjoining American-owned houses. The burning of Queens Row was the most devastating act of the riots. The mob gradually broke up after this, although several small fires could be seen still burning after midnight. The last incident took place near midnight when a mob threatened the offices of two anti-know-nothing newspapers at times, and the Democrat. Serious damage was prevented by the intercession of pro-know-nothing Louisville Journal editor George D. Prentice. So the Times and the Democrat hated the know-nothings. George Prentice, who basically inspired this entire thing. George Prentice has a statue right outside the Louisville Public Library. He was an author, he's the editor of a newspaper, and he published all this inflammatory language, which got people pissed off with the damn German, damn Krauts, dumb, with their German tongue, and they're, coming here taking all of our jobs, living over there, looking all suspicious and shit, taking our women, right? So, we got to protect our women. It's all about the women. We got to protect white womanhood. True Protestant white womanhood. They sit in the house and don't do shit. These German women are working out in the fields with these German men. They're like the Native Americans. They're different. They're different than these stuck-up aristocratic Victorian. The answers to the questions: the Irish were in America because of the potato famine, 1845 to 1852. The Germans were in America because the 1848 revolutions had failed, so they came to America looking for the freedom and democracy that they had called for. And then the riot ended in Chicago because the National Guard was called to the scene. Okay, so those are the answers to the questions from the last video that I put out in the very beginning. So Chicago, the National Guard, and it's always the military, is going to protect us from the police, is going to protect us. The Irish like to become the police and the firefighters. So, a mix. You can't take any group of people. You're going to have good ones, you're going to have bad ones. So you can't just say the Irish are all bad. In fact, the Bohemians in the Kingdom of Bohemia is where the Holy Roman Empire, that's where the papacy, that's where the Pope, that's where they had controlled everything. The Catholic Church was through the the Kingdom of Bohemia, which is today Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic. But Bohemian and Bohemianism is referred to, that one poet, Bohemian, he was, the Bohemians were the hippies before the hippies, and Bohemianism is it's supposed to be like lavish or wants, or poets, or starving artists. I think of starving artist, Walt Whitman. So Walt Whitman was a Bohemian in the American sense. I don't know if he was actually from the Czech Republic, but he was a Bohemian. And so, Bohemianism is what, I'm a part Bohemian, but I'm saying they could be very Catholic, they could be anti-Catholic, they could have been very much, John Hughes was a Bohemian who had fought against the Catholic Church, and they had the Hussite Wars, right? So this atheist, or this guy, Protestant, a precursor to Martin Luther, actually had rose up in the Kingdom of Bohemia. So there's Martin Luther before Martin Luther. So Martin Luther's probably inspired by this this Bohemian who rose up against the Holy Roman Empire. So we see the Long brothers who got burned up in Queens Row in the Irish neighborhood. They were going to try to put out the spreading flames, but the know-nothings told them to stop. So you got the police, you got the public officials, and now you got the fire department who's turning the blind eye to all this wanton destruction and death and mayhem. They're setting fires to these buildings. Whoever was stuck in those buildings were dead. Hopefully everybody got out. It sounds like the Long brothers couldn't get out because I guess they were surrounded by the people. So for some reason, they were surrounded as if like they had been the ones guilty of the murder of Theodore Rhodes, or perhaps George Berg. But Berg, is he killed by the Irishman? Berg sounds like a German name. So a German's killed by the Irish? What does that mean, right? So many stories of barbarity, callousness during the periods of rioting. One old German was pulled from his bed and shot to death. So they're pulling old Germans out from their bed and shooting them. Another German was beaten and then cast up and down the stairwell in a sadistic game until he was dead. So they're just throwing this German up and down the steps like an old dead cat until it's dead forever. A foreigner, after being seriously beaten, was threatened with having its head chopped off. When the mob couldn't find a hatchet, they stabbed him with a pitchfork as they dragged a still living man through the street. The man with the bloody pitchfork callously stuck a loaf of bread on it and shouldered it like a rifle. It sounds like the man that James Speed had witnessed, this German that the mob is chasing. They stabbed him with a pitchfork. The victim, like the surviving Long brother, was also marched off the jail. The attitude of the mob was no better than their deeds. When asked if he saw anyone at a particular place, and Know Nothing answered, not many whites, just Irish. Right? Because the Irish aren't fucking white. Not whites. No whites. We just saw the fucking Kraut Germans and the fucking Irish. They weren't fucking white. Even women, in a manner full of the vicious hatred of certain female Louisiana segregationists of the 1950s, shrieked in passion, wishing every German, every Irishman, and all their descendants were killed, and every Catholic were cut up into minced meat. So, that's great. Fucking Louisiana segregationists, so just like the fucking Ku Klux Klan, the fucking segregationists, Know Nothing. Know Nothings are the Confederates. So Know Nothings are going to turn into Confederates. Millard Fillmore, fucking Confederate sympathizer. You had the Charles Moorhead, the governor of Kentucky, fucking Confederate sympathizer. So the Know Nothings, their anti-immigration is partly fucking anti-slavery. They're going to become the Confederates, and that probably was a split. That probably was the argument. You know, they wanted a party that was in opposition to the Democratic Party, inspired by Andrew Jackson. No one could stop the Democratic Party under Andrew Jackson, the poor, white, or, you know, working class democracy. The people get a vote for everybody all the time. And in their search for a new party to believe in, they went for the Know Nothings at first, but eventually they split over the slavery issue. And so that after they couldn't settle the slavery issue, that killed the Know Nothings. But a lot of them seems like they were liking the anti-immigration. Mark Twain was actually a Know Nothing, but eventually made Huckleberry Finn, supposedly as an Irish kid, into a hero. But he hated the Irish at first too. Talked bad about the Catholics and the Irish. So he was caught up in St. Louis. He was at the Know Nothing riots of St. Louis in 1854. So that's what they wanted to do. The fucking white Anglo-Saxon Protestant females wanted every German. They wanted every German man, woman, child, every Irish man, woman, child, all their kids, descendants, and their ancestors, every fucking Catholic. They wanted them all dead. They wanted them all fucking dead. So it was very specifically anti-German, anti-Irish, and anti-Catholic. Not necessarily xenophobic, but anti those specific immigrants. They were politically, they had clout, right? They had power. They were rising power. They didn't like that they not only did they want to do things different, but they had the ability, possibly a chance to actually change things. And the fucking white Anglo-Saxon fucking Protestants hated that shit. A precise casualty figure for the Louisville riots has never been determined. Estimates have ranged 14 to 100. So there's a published list of 19 names of casualties following the week, following Bloody Monday. Of those killed, roughly 2 out of 3 were foreign-born. Questions arisen about the relative casualties of Bloody Monday with the contemporary Kansas border fighting. Okay, so 2 out of 3 of 19 names were foreign-born, which means that there was a handful of white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that got murdered too. So that's the Kentucky book here. The Louisville riots of August 1855, which was for the election for the state officials and for, I want to say, the governor. You have Charles Slaughter Moorhead, who was elected governor after this happens. You have the Know Nothing mayor of Louisville. You have a Know Nothing governor. You just had a Know Nothing president. And so there's basically a flash. The Know Nothing grabbed power. So the Republican Party was kind of like the same way with the meteoric sort of rise to power. You know, it was the order of the Star Spangled Banner. So really it was a cult, and then the cult had some ideas about how, you know, keeping America purely Protestant and purely English speaking. So English speaking Anglo-Saxon, no fucking Irish, no fucking Germans. Speak the goddamn fucking language of this goddamn country. Fuck the immigrants. Fuck you goddamn wop, mick, fucking Kraut, German, Irish, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, you know, fucking Estonian, Russian, Jews, whoever the fuck all you motherfuckers. The white Anglo-Saxon Protestant English man got here fucking first. We're the imperialists. We were born here. We murdered all the fucking natives. We enslaved the African. We've been here for several years. This is our fucking country. Get the fuck out. Or be like us. Be Puritan. Fuck your Christmas. Fuck your Christmas tree.